Welcome to this webinar on strategic planning and goal setting, brought to you by floodlightsdaily.com. Floodlightsdaily.com is a Christian blog that provides you with resources for a successful Christian living. This webinar was facilitated by Emmanuel Afutu. Emmanuel is a Christian. He's a husband and a father. He has more than 10 years of experience in leading projects in the telecommunications industry and in the social sector. Take a seat, relax, and we would love to have your feedback in the comment section below.
I'm using a second screen, so if you don't see me sort of looking at you or appearing to look at you, I am looking at a second screen, so just forgive me for that. So I think we would go on. Hopefully we should be able to do this within the hour, and then I think we can have questions afterwards. So if there is any question, please feel free. You can stop and then you can ask. And please, thank you all for joining. I see quite a number of people online. Some I know, some I don't. Good evening to all of you. I see a few of my colleagues and have joined as well. Good evening to all of you. I see Felicia, I see Kayode. Good evening. All right, so without wasting much time, I will start. So today we're talking about personal strategic planning. And thank you, moderator, for inviting me and telling me that I have to do this. I was told to do this, and thank you very much. All right, so we will start with personal strategic planning. Now, first and foremost, without going big on too many words, we would say, what is planning? All right, basically, personal strategic planning is about identifying what you are here to do and aligning your plans with who you are and with what's most important to you. Let me, with the way this is, just forgive me. Yes, so personal strategic planning is about identifying your purpose here, what you are here to do, and then aligning your goals with who you are and then what is most important to you. So if you have to do a plan, first and foremost, it has to start with you. Who are you as a person? And then you then go on to, in terms of what you are here to do, and then aligning your goals with who you are, basically. So that becomes, in terms of our definition for personal strategic planning. The question is often asked, why do we plan? I mean, why at all the need to plan? And I think that's the question that we'll try to answer in this session, because it is very important to identify why the need to plan before we go on. Now, as we journey through life, we sort of realize that, and we ask ourselves that, look, how would I want to be remembered? What would be, what should be my contribution after I am gone? And these are questions that, as we all go through life, we ask ourselves. And it's something that hopefully by the end of this would have gone through a process to be able to not necessarily answer, but at least be fairly okay with these questions. So why plan? We plan because each one of us has a purpose which must be fulfilled. I mean, all of us have a purpose which we must fulfill. Forgive me, I would use a lot of maybe scriptures on this, because this then gets to the core of why we should plan, because all of us have a purpose. And when we check Exodus chapter 9, verse 16, it says that God says that he has raised us for this very purpose. For this very purpose, he has raised us. And if he has raised us for this very purpose, it means that God himself has a plan for us. The second reason why, in terms of identifying our own plans, is God says that it's many other plans in the man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. So we get to understand that it is, all of us have plans, but there is a specific purpose that each of us have to fulfill. And the third scripture that I would rely on is from Acts chapter 13, verse 36, which says that it says, "Now when David had served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep," which means that each of us, after we fulfill, or if we don't fulfill our purpose, I mean, there will be a time of accountability. But David, we are told that he served his purpose and then he fell asleep. All right. So I'll go on in terms of why plan. Now, the next reason is that planning helps us to purposefully leave a legacy for the next generation. Now, if we don't plan, we are not just here, so we see that planning helps us to purposefully achieve God's legacy, to leave a legacy for the next generation. And I'm reading the scriptures that are on your screen now, that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So we see that if we have to leave an inheritance, not just for our children, but for our children's children, then planning is very necessary. And the other scripture that I also rely on is Proverbs Chapter 24. And it says, Proverbs 24, simply put, I took the Amplified version, which says that it says, through skillful and godly wisdom is a house. And you see with the Amplified, they define what the house is. They said a life, a home, a family. Through skillful wisdom is a house built, and by understanding it is established. And then on a sound and good foundation, it's established on a sound and good foundation. And it continues in the verse 4, says that by knowledge shall its chambers be filled with all pleasant and with all precious and pleasant riches. So you see that in order for us to build anything, the last one, which says that which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it. So these are scriptural references that we can use to say that in order for us to do anything, we need to sit. We are building our lives. Our lives are more than towers. Our lives are bigger. And it says, which of you sitting down to do anything? So this is the ideal time for us to sit and then review and then see that, okay, do we have enough to do what God has called us to do, or to fulfill that purpose that he has given to us? The other reason is that planning helps us to achieve God's purpose through efficient and effective use of resources. So God has given all of us resources, and we need to sit and use that plan. I mean, effectively use that plan. One of my favorite writers, Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, lists habit 2. Habit 2 says that begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. Now, planning is the tool that helps us to begin with the end in mind. All of us, I don't know what your age is, maybe you're 20, you're 40, you're 50, but the point is that we need to begin with the end in mind. If you want to end up in a certain way, you want to end up maybe in your vision, you want to end up having maybe a house or two, or you want to end up having a car, or you want to end up with your family in a certain way, you need to have that vision that we are going to begin with the end in mind. And that is why we need to plan. Okay, so I'll move on. All right. Now, I'll move on straight to in terms of how do we create that plan? How do we create that plan? And I wrote five processes in terms of how we create that plan. And then we'll go into detail in this in the subsequent slide. The first process in creating your personal plan is to think deeply and assess our current state. Now, if you assess yourself, you should assess yourself and ask yourself that today, where are you? Just a quick one. Today, where are you? You should ask yourself today, where are you within what you're doing? I'm moving the slide around. Okay. So you need to think deeply and assess what you're doing. You need to ask ourselves that where are you? We need to analyze yourself. Whatever you're doing now, you need to analyze and say, What's your history? Where have you come from? What's your background? Where are you today? And what future do you envision for yourself? If you do not do that needs assessment, that self-assessment now, you cannot start your plan. You must be able to sit and analyze and say that, okay, look, this is where I am. This is where I want to go to. And these are the tools that will help me get there. And this is where a SWOT needs to be done. So the SWOT simply is your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. We'll go through it in detail. Now, the second in writing down your plan is that you need to identify what really matters to you, what's important to you. Today, if you look at yourself, where you are, what's your vision? What's your personal vision? This time, we're not talking about our company visions, or we're not talking about any other vision, but you're talking about you, yourself. What is your vision? Where is your end goal? What's your mission? What's your values? So where do you want to go? How are you going to get there? And then what are the behaviors and the values that would help you to get there? So I'll go through this. The third one is we move down to action. That is, we need to document our plan. We need to write it down. We need to now come to what would be the components of our plans. What are the priority areas? And then break it down into goals and tactics that will help us move towards that plan. The fourth one is to create measures and accountability for our objectives. So how would we know that they are there? How would we quantify it? And then who would be your partner? And then the last one is to measure, manage, and monitor. What are the means by which we're going to use to measure our plan, to manage it, to monitor it, so that it is constantly evolving. And no plan is static. Plans keep evolving. So with this five-step process in terms of assessing who we are, where we are right now, identifying what's important, writing down the plan, and then the measures of accountability, we should be able by the end of this to have gone through the process of creating a plan. Okay. All right. So the first one, in terms of, and I'll be referring to the item 2, your vision mission, is to create an inspiring vision and start moving towards that dream. Now, what is the vision? The vision is, as somebody has described it, is the end goal mental site. Where do you see yourself? What is the mental vision of what you're doing? I mean, so when you take maybe from your spiritual life, you take your professional life, you take your family life, what is the end goal? Where do you see yourself when all is said and done? Your vision helps you to keep the direction, and gives you direction and motivation to keep you on track. And then your vision, as James Allen has said, he said, your vision is the promise of what you shall be one day. So your vision is the mental state. At the end of it, how do you see your family? At the end of it, how do you see yourself career-wise? Where is that end state? And we need to have that end state so that we know what road will get us there. And that is the mission. We will come to that. So in envisioning, if you were 10 times bolder, I mean, in your relationship, if you are 10 times bolder in your family, if you are 10 times bolder in your work or school, what would be that vision? What would you have seen your family? When we finish this, I have a few, there's a draft plan that we would go through, and I believe that we'll be able to see this. I'll also share with Susie to share on the various platforms in terms of what kind of vision do we want to see going forward. So yes, if I were to ask you to draw a picture of what you want to see, I mean, in terms of your vision, what would you say? I mean, from your personal and from a spiritual perspective. So this afternoon I was sitting down, and then I was writing, and then I wrote this one, that personal vision. At the end of my life, I want to be a friend of God spiritually. I mean, and that becomes the end goal. So any other activity that you're going to do would be to get you to be a friend of God spiritually. So whether it is making sure you are in church, or you're reading the Bible, or you're praying, or whatever it is, meditating, whatever it is, it becomes your personal vision statement. Okay. All right. So that's done, and we'll give a pause some time for other activities in terms of being able to write. And if you can, please, you can get maybe a paper and a pen by your side. You can be jotting down some of the notes. We'll try and share the slides as well, but you can be jotting some things which will be said. So we move on to, we said what's important. We said your vision, your mission, and then your values. So I'll go to the values. Now, the values are what you stand for. Your values are what you stand for. They are your beliefs. What is it that you believe at the core of you? They represent your core priorities. They represent the things that you will compromise or that you will not compromise. Values are the key component. They drive the intent of your plan. So the values you choose and the priorities will determine your approach to life and work. Now, in terms of our values, these are the integral part. Find your values as maybe integrity, diligence, discipline. You will see that in the way you approach your work, in the way you approach the things you do, these would be the limiting ends, so that you would not go beyond, you would not go above, but you work within those parameters. So yes, so we can have values. So in terms of if I were to maybe, let's say, pause and let's say list the three, and I ask a question. Maybe let me ask Susie first. The first question, that list the three materials you value most in the world. That's putting her on the spot. What are the three things that you value most in this world?
Number one says the three material things.
The three material things that you value most in this world. Yes.
A house.
Maybe you can do a house to live in. Okay.
A car to move around. And books. In terms of material things, I think it's perhaps like a house to live in, a car to move around, and then books. So outside of people. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Maybe somebody can answer maybe that question 3. List the 3 relationships that you value most. What are the 3 relationships that you value most? I mean, for you. Yes, anybody at all? Or maybe I should ask Madam Esther. You want to answer?
Okay, I think there are some answers in the chat box.
Okay,
somebody says relationship with God.
Okay.
And then relationship with spouse. As Miriam, so her first answer is relationship with God. Her second answer is relationship with spouse. And her third answer is relationship with children.
Okay. So relationship with God, relationship with spouse, and then relationship with children. So without so in creating your plan, these 3 would be the ones that you would not do anything. You would not do anything to compromise. So these would be the 3 relationships that you value most. And those form the core. I believe if we come to our beliefs or our values, we would also go. But it requires for us to sit down in doing any plan at all to determine what really matters most to you. All right, I'll move on. Now we'll move on to the third part in terms of a mission statement. And because mission statement is sometimes misunderstood, it's a bit misunderstood. So I just wanted to start from the definition of what is a mission. All right. A mission is an inner urge to pursue an activity or perform a service. It's a calling. It's what one intends to do. It's an intent, an objective. It's a target. Your mission is expressed in how you live your life. So your mission is what you are going to do. And that's, so if we move straight from that to what is a mission statement, you see that the mission statement then becomes the summary of your purpose, and it's the means of establishing what's important. There's a French term called the raison d'être, which means it's your reason for being or the justification for your existence. So that becomes your mission statement, and your mission statement just defines you as a person. And this is a very important thing, because this is what determines why you are here, what you're here to do. Okay, so as I've said, it's who you are, what you are here to do and be. So let's pause for a minute, and you must ask yourself maybe a question that you've not asked yourself before. But what is your mission, and what is your mission statement? All right, this is something that you must pause and deep down ask yourself, that me, Emmanuel Afutu, why am I on this earth? What is my mission here? Your mission statement requires a lot of investigation. It requires a lot of work most of the time, and I'll recommend your mission statement also aligns with your purpose. It aligns with the reason why you are here. If you haven't maybe really defined or really found out, there's a book called The Purpose-Driven Life, written by a man called Rick Warren. I'm sure you can Google and probably find a soft copy version of it, but it helps to define your mission statements. All right. And I wrote this mission statement down as well. And it's closely related to me. So this also, the mission statement is to help people find their purpose and maximize their potential with Jesus at the center. So this is my mission statement, and it defines why I do the things I do. I mean, so if, let's say, I meet you, the kind of questions I'll ask you will be purposed or will be couched around this. So if each one of us must find their mission statement. I got a few examples also from others to share. So somebody's mission statement is, in all situations, I'll choose to create harmony by acting with patience, understanding the thought before I speak. That's why the person exists. I'll read a third one. It says, to live my life with intention by listening, learning, laughing, and loving the world around me. And then I'll read the last one. It says, to think in ways that serve me and those around me with cheerfulness, honesty, respect, and humility. So you must come up with your own mission statement. It can be revealed to you. People find it in different ways, but it's one of the most important things that you must find. What is your mission? Okay, or your mission statement. Okay, so now what we've done so far is that we have talked about what the personal strategic plan is. We've talked about the vision, the end goal. We've also talked about the core values, the things that you will not trade for anything. And then we've talked about the mission, why you are here. Now, these three form the underlying core of your personal strategic plan. Now that you know, okay, where I'm going to end, if you are going through the process, where I'm going to end, you're going through the mission of why I'm here, and then you go through the process of finding what values, which one's value. Now we move on to the action itself, the main meat of it. So between the vision and your current status sits the action plan. All right. So the difference between your current status, your vision, and then where you want to be, what will take you there, this is the action plan. So now that we're moving towards the action plan, we've just defined our vision, mission, and then our core values. So we go to our SWOT. And as I indicated earlier, the SWOT is your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. Okay. Yes. So your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. Now, your SWOT will give you an indication of what you need to stop doing and what you need to start doing. Because as you measure your SWOT, which ones are your strengths? What are the things that you will probably need to continue doing more, and what are the things that you need to stop doing? Because the SWOT reveals yourself. It opens yourself. It opens you to yourself and says that, I didn't know. It's sitting down to take inventory. And as you sit down to take inventory, you'd realize that, I didn't know I was strong in this area. I didn't know I was weak in this area. I've just identified a threat over here. All right. Okay. So I move on. So in the SWOT, don't worry about the arrows by the side. I didn't know where to put them. So they were in the middle. So I just put them by the side. All right. So in the SWOT, you see you have your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The strengths and the weaknesses are internal. Those are your personal, they are internal to you. The external opportunities and threats, the opportunities and threats are external factors that relate to you. Okay, so just a quick example on this. Now, you see that here with this example created here, and this was just something just created. So you'd see that your personal strength would be creative, fun and funny, you're quickly wit, you're knowledgeable, and so on. So you see that many times when you're doing your SWOT, you see that your strengths are a lot. You see a lot of strength. Then you see your weaknesses. Your weaknesses are where you need to be true to yourself. If you're not true to yourself in doing your weaknesses, you would not really get a lot from it. So you'd see that, okay, what are your weaknesses? Your weaknesses are that you coil when you are reprimanded. Your weaknesses are that you would not, you get angry easily. Your weaknesses are that you are not prone to feedback. And you'd see that you would get a lot as you drill down to who you are. Then what are the opportunities, which are the external advantages that you have? So you have advantages of coaching, there are books, there are online resources, and you realize that these are all opportunities to help you to do your plan. Remember that we define the plan as the series of activities that we need to do to achieve the goal. So these are the potential opportunities that we have, seminars. And then what are the threats? I mean, the threats are still external. There are things that you don't know. Threats, I mean, there's a new app you don't know. I mean, it's external to you, but it could have an impact on you. So those are some of the, in terms of doing a SWOT. And the SWOT, many times we want to skip it, but it is very important that you sit down very carefully and do a SWOT on yourself, so that you are able to know which areas you need to improve, which areas you have as an advantage, and what opportunities that are available to you. So now, going to this, in 2004, I attended a seminar in Calvary Baptist Church. At the youth organized the program, and it was on strategic planning. That was the first time I attended a program. It was done by the pastor, Reverend Philip Lutrot at the time. It was organized by Reverend Felix. Now he's the youth pastor there. All right, and this was the scripture that was used. Subsequently, what I did, it was not called the Luke 2:52 model, but subsequently, as I've grown, I've taken this up and taken it up as a model. So I call it the Luke 2:52 model. And Luke 2:52, as you can see on the screen, says that, and Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. And this frame, as we move into the action, somebody would ask, what exactly should be in my plan? What exactly should be in my plan? What things should I plan for? So the Luke 2:52 model comes in, and it says Jesus increased. When you read other versions, it says Jesus continued to increase in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. And in the subsequent slides, what we're going to do is to break this down and see how we can apply this, how we can structure that for our own plan. Okay, so going further into this plan, so it says Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. So in taking this as a frame for strategic planning, we take the wisdom. Now, if Jesus grew in wisdom, if he grew in wisdom, now you can see that with the wisdom, we're talking about education. At that time, Jesus's father was a carpenter, and he must have grown, learned, and today, Jesus knew how to read. So there must have been some education done somewhere, but he grew into a career. And it's not just a career. Some people would end in business. So you would see that if you were to break the wisdom down, you would get Jesus continue to grow in wisdom, that's education, in his career and business. And then we can also add finance to it, because there must be some money that will be needed to finance. And we are told in the scripture that Jesus indeed had a finance minister, in the person of Judas, I believe. All right. So there was that growth. So Jesus grew in wisdom. So in planning our lives, the first pillar, and I don't think it's in any priority, but that's how the Bible put it. So the first pillar, if we're to name it, is wisdom. That how do you plan? What goes into your plan for education? What goes into your plan for career and business? What goes into your plan for finances? And I believe these are all major topics that when you sit down and you're able to set your goals for education, you'd be able to say, okay, this is what I want to do. Go 1, go 2, go 3. And we will go through, like I said, at the end, we'll go through a document which I find as probably one of the most important documents in strategic planning. And we'll go through it, and then we can get practical examples of it. The second pillar is on stature. When you are doing your strategic plan or your personal plan, the second pillar is on your health. So what are your plans for health? And when you check, it says Jesus grew in stature. Many of us, we also, I added in later years, I added branding and grooming to it, to the second point, because you realize that a lot of us, especially maybe of the Christian faith, we don't consider anything about branding. We don't consider how maybe people see you or how your image is out. So typically, and we have all been in if you talk about maybe a prayer papa or something, you'd see, oh, this is somebody who really doesn't, come up about how the image is. But come to think of it, let's look at the other side. If you talk about, let's say somebody like KKD, what image comes in your head? As somebody who is sharply dressed, somebody who, is always properly suited, neatly, and you can see. Or if I mention maybe Eastwood Anaba, you see the image which comes into your head is somebody who is wearing some braces here, and he's kept that image. So for us as Christians and as people who want to go forward or want to advance, what is your plan in terms of your health, your branding, and your grooming? Are we just allowing ourselves just anyhow, to just look anyhow, to eat anything? No. Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature. And then the third one, it says he grew in favor with God. In favor with God is our spiritual life. So how are we growing spiritually? So that becomes a very important part of our strategic plan. That how are you growing in terms of the word? How are you growing in fellowship in church? How are you growing in the use of your talents in ministry? How are you growing in reaching out to others? How are you growing in discipleship? Whether you are discipled or you are discipling others or you are being discipled. And these are things that you'd realize that, okay, we may not, because we've not sat down to count the cost. We've not sat down to know exactly, where we are on each stage. You realize that we'll be growing haphazardly. because you maybe, for want of a word, let me call it kwashiorkor growth. So you're growing so much in one area, the other area is totally neglected. And I think that when you sit down in terms of and take the model and say that, okay, I'm growing in wisdom, this is how it's balanced. In stature, this is how it is going. In favor with God, and then in favor with man. So in favor with man, when you break it down, in favor with man, you would have your family life. I mean, if you are not married, you would still have your family, whether nuclear, extended, or one day you will have a family. So it is something that you need to. So you see that in terms of the favor with man, what is your plan in terms of your family, your parenting, and then your home goals? If you are married or you are intending to, you must have those planned for. You must have those written down. In terms of your friendships, a lot of us are growing, and we're growing and leaving our friends behind. Today, maybe if I were to ask, how many of us have friends whom we can call, who you have a problem with? We probably maybe have become maybe self-sufficient or something. So we've left a lot of our friends behind. But we need to have plans. Who are your friends who you call? They may not be a lot, but we definitely must have friends who we are growing and having a plan for. I mean, friends will build you. And then also in favor with man, we talk about our community and our civic engagement. Who are you within your community? What groups are you in within the community? We cannot just be living and maybe be living alone. We interact with other people. Maybe you are in Rotary, or you are in some group, or you are in some role within your community. But these are things that we must have plans for. Then we must also have plans for our mentor and our mentee relationships. And somebody has said that at every stage you are, we have 3 levels of relationships. We have relationships of those who are above us, that's our mentors. We have our peers, and that's our friends. And then we have those who are looking up to us. How is that relationship? So you may be growing, but you may not have anybody covering you. You may not have any mentor. Mentors have saved me from some very dangerous decisions, career-wise, some very dangerous decisions that I've had to make, very, very decisions that have really helped my marriage, because you visit them, and then the mentor is not looking for your money. Is not looking for anything from you, and asks you the critical question: have you done this? Have you done that? And also, growing our mentee relationships helps us to keep us on our toes. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. So I'll move from here. But this frame is a very important frame. If you don't remember anything from this, please, this frame, in case you go somewhere and you need to do your strategic plan, just consider Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and favor with man. And then you can break it down for yourself. There are various ways, but if you just remember this frame, Jesus grew in wisdom, education, career, business, finance, in stature, your health or food, and then favor with God, and then favor with man. I believe you would be able to move on ahead. So in moving towards our actions, so this was just an example. In moving towards our actions, I just wrote maybe career goal number 3. All right, and I'll show a frame. But like I said, I'll show a document which gives, and we'll share with you, so that it doesn't make all this quite complex. It just simplifies everything. So in career goal number 3, so it's to develop a time management plan which sets aside meaningful. So this was a goal that you've done for your career. All right, and maybe I just put career over there, but you could also maybe put under family. It doesn't really matter. But then the action steps that you've written are to purchase and read a book on time management, which you have put by December 31st, 2021. And then you want to commit to keep a journal to which you plan all your activities, which is something which is a tool which really helps. And you want to do that by week 51, which is next week or next 2 weeks. Which is this week. All right. And then maybe to talk about your spouse. So this is an example. So when we take, let's say, the goals, we now need to break them down into specific action steps. I think we are moving okay. All right. So typically, this is how this is how our plans would be. It would be, the goal or the area. So you would have maybe the goal in terms of education. And one thing I would want to recommend is that we write. We write. I mean, all these are templates, but we need to fail. I know many of us can type, but it's very important that we have a book, a hard copy book that we write in. I'll give some other steps in the slides ahead. What is your goal? What is your action step? And what is the time line? So putting all together, we've talked about reviewing our core values, the mission, the SWOT. We've decided on the major goals, which is using the Look 252 models. And then we'll talk in the subsequent slides about reviewing our plan to modify as and when needed. Now, what are the tools that we need for planning and goal setting? What are the tools that we need for planning and goal setting? The first tool we need is time. We need to make time and space for retreats. And when I say retreat, I don't mean going out, and maybe I should have put that retreat in quotes. But the first tool that we need is time. A lot of us do not make the time. Now, we are in this age, we're inundated by a lot of activities. A lot of activities don't allow us to make time, whether it's your daily plan. If you are going to start your week or you're going to start your day, the last time we attended a seminar with Letitia and Michael and Letitia Amposa, and they said on Sunday evenings, it's something that I've subsequently heard from a number of people, which we also do with practice, but that on Sunday evenings, one person who is prone to, who is more planned, who is more in the planning line must make time. I mean, all of us may not be able to, but we need to make time and space for retreat. At the beginning of the day, what I've realized is that whether I start at 7 o'clock or I start at 8 o'clock, I will still end the day maybe around 7 or 6 o'clock. So if I spend 10 minutes or I spend 15 minutes putting my phone on airplane mode and making time to write what I need to do for the week, what I need to do for the day, I believe it helps. So that's the first tool. We need a lot of time. Then we need attention as well. We need full attention. Today, we have an attention deficit. The phone, this device that we have over here, has become a device that, takes a lot of our attention. So we are not able to keep our attention span for any considerable length of time. And so that's the second tool. If you have to do planning, you need to get into a mode, maybe you call it a monk mode or whatever it is, and then put off your phone, put it on airplane mode, get no attention, which is why maybe the retreat, sometimes you have it out of the house, especially if maybe you're doing a quarterly review or maybe a half yearly or a yearly review. You need full attention, and you need devices that will not distract you. You need to get to the place where for one day you are not having your phone with you, but you are fully focused on your plan. All right. And then also the third one is we need our brains ready to think. This point is very important because most of the time we are not making full use of our brains. We are not making full use of our resources ready to think. Allow our brains to think. I sometimes think that when they were beating us in school, they were trying to force us because immediately the cane comes, you can think. And I think the brain loves a little push. So we need to spend time, and then we need to allow ourselves educationally, challenge ourselves. What is it that we want? Financially, challenge ourselves. What is it? So we need to be ready. You need a book. You need a hardcover book. Now, a lot of the books, and I think this is one of the most, this is one of the most important, and then a pen, and then readiness to sit. The last bit, the last point is the readiness to sit and set aside time. You'd realize in the scripture that we read in Luke, it said that which of you intending to build a tower does not take time to sit first. We need to make time to sit. Many of us are not sitting. We are busy about many things and we are not sitting. And I think this is one of the most. So these become the tools. We need time, we need attention, we need our brains ready to think, a book to write, or many of us are also very computer savvy, but I don't want to go there. We need also that. Okay, so now, why do most plans fail? Most plans fail because of time deficit, attention deficit, and then we are not taking time to review the plans. All right, and then Confucius made a statement. This statement, I heard it actually last 2 weeks in a program by Mr. Mahami. He quoted, he said that if your plan is for 1 year, you plant rice. If your plan is for 10 years, you plant trees. If your plan is for 100 years, you educate children. And I quoted this statement because it gives a certain perspective in terms of what should go into our plans if we're going to grow beyond, and get to the stage of our children's children. And I think it's a very important point that if you're going to just plan for 1 year, know what will go inside your plan. If you're going to plan for 10 years, but if it's going to go beyond, then you know that a lot needs to go into it. All right, so this is an example of the worksheet I used. All right, okay. So I mentioned previously, I'll stop sharing right now and go to the document I mentioned. I mentioned that we would use. Let me bring it here. Okay, so just a quick one. If you're able to see my screen, you let me know. Okay. All right, so share. All right, Susie, are you able to see the screen now?
Yes.
You can see the document.
Yes, the writings are a bit small, so maybe you can just help us.
Okay, so all right, so I'm reading the document. Now we've gone through the process of planning. All right, maybe I may have gone through it a bit fast, but basically in recapping, what we went through was with the process of defining what a strategic life plan is. And then we went through the 5 steps in terms of outlining what's important, that is identifying your mission, vision, and values. Then we went through the process of making the action plan, assessing where you are, where we consider the SWOT. And yes, we did a SWOT analysis. Then we went through the process of coming together with the action plan, which is where you identify what exactly really matters. And with that, we did the Luke 252 model, where we looked at what should be the content of your strategic plan. And so we looked at the boy Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. So we went through that process, and that led into the definition of the goals process, where you write what goal it is and then what action steps you would take. Now, I mentioned that there's a document which was created by church, New Life. What's the name? It's by Bishop Eddie Long's church. Bishop Eddie Long has passed, but his church did a document, and I find this document as probably New Birth Church. I find this document as probably one of the most important resources if you want. It makes it very simple. It doesn't complicate it. Doesn't complicate the plan at all. And I think they did a lot of work into this. So I just want us briefly to go through, and then after that, we can ask any questions. And yes, probably. So they did this. Forgive me, I'm just running through. So these ones we've done, everyone ends up somewhere. They did some introduction. New Birth Missionary Church, that's the name of the church. And so they did a document which all the church members can use. All right. So these are points we've talked about as a minimum. So here you can see they said spiritual, family, finance. So, but if you go to with this frame, if you take the Luke 2:52, you would see that everything would really fit in there, and you wouldn't have many people have a lot of areas that they do. So you find some do 8, some do 6, some do 4. But I think if you take the frame, you'd be able to break it down to what you'd want to do. All right. So let me not go through these portions. Let me go to. So here, just quickly, your mission, what the definitions for the places, your mission, that is, speaks to your life's purpose, God's promise. This is in their document. So your strategy is the series of steps that will help you. Your goals is the intended end of your strategy. And then you can have a long, short, or a generational plan. All right. And then they added one very important thing. It's the budget. So when you are writing, when we are doing the plan, and like I said, this document will be shared, it's quite important because we are getting to the end of the year. 2021, 2020 has come with a lot of, but when you sit down and you're able to review the past year in terms of analyzing what has happened, and you're able to make a plan for the long term, you'd realize that it really helps. It really does help. Okay. So I would go to, so they started off with a spiritual plan, and I will not go into, but when you have the document, so they started off by reflecting. So reflecting on the past, the present, and the future. So in reflecting on the past, so you look at the history, the history. So what stands out most in your mind? And like I said, I like this document because I think they really did a lot of work in it. In terms of the present, what strengths, weaknesses are evident, and then you would see whatever. So they took one specific example, and for each one of them, they made an example so that it would help whoever takes it. So for example, in terms of a spiritual reflection, what history, weaknesses, missed opportunities, and threats are revealed from your family history? And just to read on this one, it says, remember Big Mama making us to go to church Sunday and Baptist Training Union. Every night she prayed for us. So they're talking about the history, and you talk about the present. You talk about the reflection on the children. What would you want the future to look like? And then you see, so they are reflecting, they're doing a spiritual reflection from the past into the future, and then considering the now as well. So when you take the document, you can also write yours over here, and that becomes and just a warning, a strategic plan takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. I mean, it can take you 2 days to do this. I remember the first time we did a plan, I think we went, it took us about 3 days. We went on a Friday, we came on a Monday, and it takes a lot of time, but it's always worth it. And you just do that once because the others are reviews. Okay, so if I take this one, now this is their strategic life plan, the draft of it. Now, if you take the draft, so the vision, this is the person who did the vision. And I like it because they made it very real. They made it very real in terms of how it comes out. So the vision is, my children's children will hear and be reminded about God's word and his promises for their lives from the time they are conceived until they are working in full purpose and destiny. And sometimes I always say that because they did this so well, it doesn't hurt if you take this, but write it in your own language, write it in the way, and you can adapt it. And then the mission, to create and maintain a spiritual heritage that is based upon a strong foundation of prayer and the knowledge of God's word. And then they added the promise or God's standard. And then you can see the strengths. So they did the Swot over here. So what are the strengths over here? You see the strength is a strong, and they are analyzing this for spiritual, a strong prayer life, a willingness to serve. Then what are the weakness, and failing to study, they look at the opportunities, they look at the threats. Then they came to the goals. So this is just on the spiritual front. So within 0 to 12 months, what are the immediate goals that can happen? And then you can see by December 31st, 2007, I would have taken at least one class offered by the Life Bible Institute. And this is a very specific, which you can do within the next 12 months. All right. And you go there, and then, so they broke it down. And so this is an example. They went down into 1 to 3, 4 to 10, and then children's lifetime. Let me do their children. By 2060, my children are prepared, consistently praying and sharing the word of God with their children from the womb throughout their development. And so you can see that this is a document, and that's why I said that they make it very simple. So if you have this, what budget? And I remember this was the hardest part in doing what budget. This is the hardest part in doing the plan, because you can't wrap your mind around, because it requires a lot of work if you're going to think of how much would it cost. I mean, so if you take maybe the spiritual, how much would it cost? What are the tools that you need? Maybe you want to attend some school, or yes, what would it cost? And so they give. So this is a one pager. This is a one pager which contains everything. And so if yours is able, it doesn't have to be, and I always say sometimes we make planning so difficult, but sometimes it can be very simple, and they made it that simple. So I see it. And so there's a free page. I have the Word version of it as well. So in terms of maybe if yours is a lot, it can be shared. And then you can just do what's your vision. And like I said, they've given an example, what's your vision, what's your mission, what the promise, and then you can do your own strategy. So this is it. So they did the same thing, and they share other resources. So they did the same thing for let's say family. And you can see over the family, what's the vision for the family. The marriages of my children will only end in death, which means that they will be married for life. Their homes will be free of violence, blah, 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 blah. And then the mission is interruption in the, and so this was the person's, so you create it according to your own challenge. And then what are the strengths? What are the strategy? Basically you go through and you realize that, okay, so what are the immediate goals? Starting today, I'll spend 30 minutes of uninterrupted time with each of my children every day. And the beauty about doing this is that, about doing the plans, is that it helps you to be intentional. I mean, and when you are intentional, you realize that you get results which you can measure, which you're looking for. But if you are not intentional, anything else can surprise you. So you go through, they did for, let's do maybe one or two more, and then we can, they did for finance. So my godchildren's children will operate 4 active streams of income with no debt, and are empowered to utilize as tools to lend to nations. The mission is, as I am blessed financially, to be a financial blessing to others. And they put a scripture strategy, and then what opportunities. So what opportunities are available to them. So some of them may not be relevant. Maybe you can put something else over there in terms of automating your finance or something. And then the goals. So here's complete. Maybe yours might be to attend maybe a financial seminar with maybe Mr. Mentee or somebody. And then you can put it over there, and then you can have it over there. Okay. So now when you go through this, now the other bit would be now how you are able to track this, because as you see, this is a document which just tracks, let's say, on a high level. So you've done this for, you've filled this document. It's become quite voluminous. And how are you going to break it down? And if you check I think the last but 3 slides, it tells us, let me just look on it. It tells us that we need to have regular reviews for our daily. So you take your 0 to 12 months, and you're going to break it down into let's say quarterly goals. So let me take maybe just for let me take the strategies over here. So this person's financial strategy was to complete an exercise by January 31st. this is today is December. Today is 19th December, and he wants to complete by January 31st. So which means that if you're going to break it down into 3 months, he wants to do this. In your 3 months plan, this must feature. So when you take your quadrant and you draw it into the four spaces that we put in wisdom and goals, when you go to your main goals, you'd realize that, oh, okay, in this first 3 months, in terms of career, I want to complete a course by Black Enterprises Wealth Building Kit by January. So that plan will be there. I want to let me find maybe some other thing which all right, I want to effectively immediately track expenses. So this can also apply in your plan now. So now you've done a quarterly plan, which is a 3-month plan, January, February, and March. Okay, so after you've done that, now that quarterly plan, you must be monitoring it on a monthly basis, but it would also start from a weekly basis, because the week, as somebody has said, the week is the complete, most manageable patch of the planning cycle, because the week has a full cycle of work days, 5 work days. It has everything in there. So when you take, let's say, the week plan, so I do the week plan. I am a stickler with my diary. So I'll take week 1 and I'll say that, okay, so week 1, with regards to career, what am I going to do? Okay, I want to complete this exercise. So this week, it means that I have to check. I want to go to Accra to check when the next class will start. So it will be in my plan in that way. So now you're breaking it down into manageable chunks that you will be able to manage. And basically, if you're able to do that, and on a daily basis, as you have put maybe time to it, so you do the week, maybe I'll do that on Tuesday. And because it's a diary, I will write it in the Tuesday column. And on Tuesday, I know how to then manage my schedule so that, okay, maybe around 12 o'clock, I can go and come, or whatever time I would do. But basically, these are the things that we need to be doing. I believe as we share the slides, you can take further cues from there. But I think that's it. So I will not go through all of them. This resource is available online. It's called the Strategic SLP Starter Kit. You can get it online. And I find it as a most important resource that you can use in building a strategic life plan. In closing, I would say that planning is very difficult. Many people, we know, we know that planning is hard, but we find it very difficult to do it because a lot of us do not like to sit. And as you have famously heard that statistic that only 3% of people sit to plan. I mean, even as you sit on this call, Charlie, instead of maybe sitting here, probably maybe I should be planning. But we just want to encourage and want to, sometimes it's good for us to remind ourselves, even as we're preparing, we realize, okay, look, there are new things that we are adding on. It's good to remind ourselves, it's good to edge ourselves on. If you have a group of friends and you can go together to a place and all of you would plan together, you can call, we can help, we can facilitate. There are various models, there are many people who also do that. So basically, we just want to encourage that, please, let us make time and then let us sit. We are ending the year. The year has been a very tough year. I mean, the past 2 years, the pandemic has made, but we cannot give up. We cannot give up on our children's children. Remember that you're not planning for yourself, you are planning for your children's children. You want to leave a godly inheritance. So we just want to say that, please, let us take this. The document will be shared. Today is December 19th, and we have a lot of holidays coming up. I mean, next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are all holidays. The following week, we have some holidays in there. Just one day. I know there's a lot of events also. Just 1 day or 2. Please miss an event and sit down for yourself, because when the year starts, you know that it's going to be helter-skelter again. So, Susie, I would want to end over here. If there is any question, we'll take, and then maybe we can close. So that's it very much. Thank you so much.
Okay. So thank you very much, Emmanuel. Emma, do you want to end your screen sharing at this stage, or?
Yes, I can end. Thank you.
Okay, that would be helpful. Great. So thank you very much, Emmanuel, for that very enlightening discussion. I've picked up a lot, and I believe that I'm not the only one. Many of us also have picked up a lot from his discussion, his presentation. So at this point, if there are any questions, I believe there are some questions, kindly feel free to bring. You can just raise your hand, or you can drop it in the comments. I could read it for you. A number of you have asked for the documents to be shared. I will do so through the WhatsApp broadcast, the emailing list, and on the various platforms where this program was advertised. I will put the recording there. We will actually put it on our YouTube channel. So flatlightdaily.com, which is, facilitating this, your Christian blog. You can check us out. We have a YouTube channel. So we'll load the recording on the YouTube channel, and then we'll share the link so you can access it. Great. Is there any question that someone would want to ask?
Okay, so I see Marian asking that can I elaborate, or can we elaborate on why plans fail? Maybe we can have a discussion. I think it's a cause for concern, because many plans fail. I gave a number of points, but I would want to, there are seniors on the line here and everybody. Why do we think that many plans fail, especially personal plans? Why do we think, maybe let's have a discussion on it. So you can please just unmute, and then we can have a discussion in terms of why do we think many plans fail. You can just unmute, and please let's make it interactive as well. Yes, Mrs. Ankara, I see your hand up, so you can please go on. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm using okay, we are listening together. This is Mark and
okay.
Okay, so I think plans fail because, one, we don't stick to it. And we don't stick to it because we don't make it flexible. There's this principle that we've used for some time. My family, we use it. I call it the principles of war. It talks about selection and maintenance of the aim, maintenance of the momentum. But there is an element that is about flexibility. And no matter how you plan, you should be ready for it to change. Like you said, it evolves. You should be ready to see that at a point, you will not have to be so rigid with it, but you must stick to it. But oftentimes, sticking to it becomes a problem because issues of life has made it to change. Like you plan to let's say take the children to Sunday school every Sunday, then you are working on Sundays. So what do? You need to change the plan. But just leaving it and not sending them to Sunday school means that you just thrown the plan away. So it's sticking to the plan and making your plan also very flexible. That's what I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So you are talking about the lack of flexibility of our plans, right? And I think that's a very important point, that our plans are not, we're not allowing our plans to breathe. Yes, please. Any Officer Mark, thank you very much. I see somebody. Yes, Mr. Lafia, I see your hand. Please, you can go on.
Then, personally, I think one of the reasons why our plans do fail many times is that perhaps they sometimes a bit too big, and we don't really break them down to the very smallest one from which we can start from. And so usually if we can maybe look at the bigger plan and break it down to the lowest from which we can practically start from, then it helps a bit there.
Okay, thank you very much, Lafia. Lafia is saying that we make our plans so big that we cannot break them into manageable chunks. And if you cannot break, as somebody has said, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. If we are not able to break it down into manageable chunks, then it means that our plans are bound to fail. So we have very huge plans and we don't know, in fact, we don't break it down. I want to be the president of Ghana. All right. Then that's a very beautiful plan, but where do you start from? So Mr. Lafia, thank you very much. Okay.
All right, Emmanuel, let me just come in here. A
Yes,
few
comments.
things in the chat. So concerning why plans fail, Dorcas is saying she thinks plans fail because people are not disciplined. And Angela says she thinks plans fail for lack of accountability. So you have a nice plan, but you don't have an accountability partner who is helping you on track to keep on track with it, and that can also affect, the plan succeeding or coming to pass.
Okay. And then I think there's another comment, but let me just comment on the discipline part. I've realized that planning is one of the activities that you need the highest level of discipline, because it is an activity that is constantly, you cannot say I have finished my plan, or you cannot say that I have ended my plan. You continue to update your plan. And if we're not disciplined and we fall off, unfortunately, whether it's one day, whether it's 1 week, we realize that we derail. So yes, I agree with that plan. And then the lack of accountability. I think this point cannot be, let's say, overemphasized on it. Now, one of the things which maybe Susie really does well is to keep me accountable in terms of if we say we're going to do something. And you need a partner who you can count on. So if you have, maybe you're not married, and you must have a friend who will hold you to your plans. And you must be willing to share your plans if you want to be held accountable. Yes, you must be able to what's the name? Share. All right, yes. So if you're married, I think that lack of accountability is one of the things, and you need to sit with your partner and say that these are, and yeah, all right. You need to sit with your partner and agree with your partner that these are the challenges I have. This is what I want to do. Can you help me and keep me accountable? And we also need to make ourselves vulnerable to, people coming to us. But that lack of accountability is very, very crucial in terms of why plans fail. The reason why in the corporate world, a lot of the plans seem to work is that there's a lot of accountability mechanisms. So you are going from a weekly review to a monthly review to a group review. And you see that because of the accountability systems and the governance systems where you cannot run away from, so the plans, they dare not fail because you're going to be held. And so this point, I think, Madam Angela, I think that's a very important point, and thanks for that. I'm also reading the comment. It says from Della, it says about discovering your purpose. Is it a matter of experimentation? So if it is, do you think you could use a greater chunk of your life in trying to discover what exactly your purpose is? The reason why I didn't touch on this matter, let's say in greater detail, is that it's a matter that requires, I think, a whole session. It's one of those sessions that is called drink deep or taste not, because you would have the tendency to not. But just to briefly go through that book written by Rick Warren, you may not necessarily have to go through your whole life to get through your purpose. In that book, The Purpose-Driven Life, Rick Warren outlines the 5 purposes of life. The first one he calls worship. Then worship. We are formed for God's. We are formed to worship God, and we are formed for His glory. The second one is for fellowship. We are formed to be in God's family. The third one is we are formed for a mission. We are formed for a mission. No, the mission is the last. Mission is the last one. So the third one is we are formed for discipleship. That's ministry. And then we are formed for ministry. We are formed for discipleship, for service, and then the last one I think is mission. If I remember them out, but there are 5. And when you go through them in one of the chapters, I think in the mission form for ministry or service, you would see that there is a certain portion where he outlines what we call your shape, SHAPE, where you know as a result of how you are shaped. And the SHAPE, he calls it, the S is spiritual gift, the H is your heart, that is your abilities, and then H is your heart, H is what you're passionate about, A is your abilities, P is your personality, and E is your experience. And the combination of these helps form your shape, that is, helps to define why you are here. So what I'll suggest for each of us is that, and that book, you go through it in 40 days. You go through it on a daily basis. You read just 1 chapter a day. So in 40 days, that's 6 weeks, you should have gone through that book. I would say that it is not a matter of a lifetime. What I'll suggest that please, you can read it. If you need a partner to discuss it, you can call Susie or myself. We can discuss with you, and then we can all discuss. But one thing I would say to my chairman here is that please, maybe you might want to consider that topic in terms of discovery, purpose, and discovering. Maybe it's one topic that you may want to consider. All right. And then, okay, thank you very much for this. How do I make an effective retreat? Okay, how do I make an effective retreat? I can only give a personal example. So typically at the beginning of the year or somewhere in the middle of the year, I would take a retreat. And when I take a retreat, because the house, sometimes maybe I would maybe go with Susie if we are able, if we are privileged to get somebody to come and take care of the house, and because there are 4 children running in the house, we would then go out of town, but we won't go too far. I mean, there's a wonderful place we go called Hepzibah, which is just on the Ibri Hills. And when we get there, all we do then is that you can pray, you can, and I always say this phone, you can shut it off, because if you go to the retreat and you are still on WhatsApp, you are still on Instagram, you are still on Facebook, you will not have an effective retreat. If you define your goal for being there, that I am there to do a 10-year plan, I am there to do a 5-year plan, and those are very difficult plans, because you're thinking 5-year term. Somebody made a statement, I think it was Bill Gates. He said that we underestimate what we can do, we overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in 10 years. I'll repeat it again. He says, we overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in 10 years. So you will see that in 10 years, we did a plan in 2013 together, and by 2016, 2017, we realized that a lot of the things had been done, which we had indicated to do for 10 years, because we went to do a 10-year plan. And so when was it? I think earlier this year, we saw that a lot of the plans were obsolete. So we had to totally review them. I mean, it didn't take 10 years. The 10 years would be up when we did it. We did it in 2013. We'll be up in 2023, but a lot of the things have already been done. So sometimes we underestimate. So if you go on a retreat, please, you can put off your phone. I mean, if everybody knows, maybe that, okay, look, please send me a message, or that I'm on a retreat, or they know in the sense within a certain time you're not available, they will not call you. The people who will get to you, you know them. In fact, nobody will die. Nothing will happen if you go on that retreat. So what I would say is that please, when you go on the retreat, please, you can shut off the phone and spend time. The phone is designed to be distractive. It's not to distract you in that way. It's designed, sometimes something pop up, you have a notification, and so it's very distractive. You take the phone to make a call, and in 5 minutes you may not have made a call because there's so many things which come through. So I think that's one of the things. We have a lot of distractions on our phone, especially our gadgets. So they are not very good retreat partners. Okay. From Huawei MI, so our personal plans fail because we are ambitious and not flexible. Our external factors not considered when plans move off track. Thank you. Inadequate monitoring and consciousness to the progress of our plans. No dedicated time within the period to review progress and amendments to personal plans. That's true. And then it says not being responsible to our plans. Thank you very much. I think these are very powerful points. I'll steal some to add to my slides, but not being responsible to our plans. And I think these are very, very plans. We are the owners of the plans. And if we decide to give up on our plans, I mean, how would they be done? Okay, so Pauline says, what's the title of the book that takes 40 days, please? The book is called The Purpose-Driven Life. The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. Okay, somebody answered. Thank you. All right, Susie, I think that's all in there.
There's something in the slides I think we haven't read.
Okay.
Just give me a little time. Did you read the points on external factors inadequate monitoring? Is that what you just read?
Yes, I did. Yes, that's what I just did.
Oh, okay.
That's what I just did.
Okay, great. Are there any more questions? Are there any more questions that somebody would want to ask? I don't see any hand up at the moment. I think we've read all that we have in the slides. Okay, then I'll just give my few closing comments as we wrap up today's
Maybe let me give
Okay.
and then when you close, then you close finally.
Sure.
So I want to say thank you to all of us. The most important gift we can give to ourselves is to sit down and really put a frame to ourselves. Plans almost let us look like we are perfect, but as you do your plan, then you realize that you are actually not perfect, and you realize that there is a lot of room for us to all improve. And one of the things I'll say is that within this holiday period, thankfully this session is closing at least early enough. We can sit down. Sometimes it will take the night, sometimes it will take the morning. But please, whatever you do, as this year is ending, please let's take time. Let's review the year for ourselves. The year has been quite torrid, up and down, but we are venturing into a new 2022 that we have no idea about, but we can sit and then we can plan it. Somebody said that planning is the highest form of faith, because when we put our plans down, God says that we should commit our plans to Him and they will succeed. And when you read Hebrews, it says it is the evidence of things not seen. I mean, which means that you have of things hoped for, which you have documented. So what I would want to say is that please, let's give that gift to ourselves. We really appreciate the fact that you joined us, and I see many of us joined on this call. Please, let's sit down. Let's spend time. Let's plan, whether it is your career, whether it's our family, whether it's our spiritual life, whether it's our relationship with the community. We realize that we'll be able to do a lot more. I really appreciate the opportunity, Susie, for this. And I hope that next year, I mean, all of us who subscribe to Spotlight or join the quarterly meetings would all have had our plans and at least moving towards them. Thank you very much, Susie. All right.
All right, Emmanuel. Thank you so much for those closing words. I just realized that there was one more comment in the chat box from Ishmael. He said, plans also fail when they are not smart, when they are not specific, they are not measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. I believe these points were also covered by Emmanuel in his presentation, that we must have very specific goals. What exactly do you want to achieve in your social life, spiritual life, academic life if you're a student, career if you are a worker, family life if you have a family, or even if you intend to have one, you can have a family life goal. Next year, I intend to get married or something of the sort. So the plans must be specific and, they must be realistic. We must not set, goals that are unrealistic, things that are out of our budgets. Our budgets must accompany our planning, as Emmanuel mentioned, and they must be time bound also, like he said. So when exactly do you want to achieve the things that you have said? Angela, do you have a question? It appears your hand is up, unless it's a mistake. Hello, Angela, are you there? Okay, so
This is a mistake.
It's a mistake. Okay, then, sure. Thank you all for spending your time with us. We don't take it for granted. We are very grateful that you spent this time with us. As our last webinar for this year, we will be doing this quarterly, hopefully, God willing, going forward, so that we all know when to expect it. It's just once a quarter. God willing, in the year 2022, the first one would be on the 5th of March, which is a holiday. I mean, it's just around the Independence holiday, and so we know that people would have time. 5th of March, I believe, is going to be a Sunday, so the following Monday will be given as a holiday. And so we'll have our first quarterly webinar. If possible, we may have a face-to-face interaction. If not, it will be a webinar. And we are looking at the possibility of hosting a resource person who will speak on the topic of parenting. So as the time draws closer, we'll communicate the topic as we usually do. Great. Now, in my closing remarks, I would say that it's good to have a vision. Vision gives us direction. But besides having a vision, we must also have systems. Because as vision gives us directions, the systems also move us forward. So, and what are the systems? These systems are the routines and the methods that we use to achieve our vision. And these systems, you can find them around us. These days, there are many applications, apps, as we call them. Depending on your career, there may be, or whether you're a student or a worker or even a full-time mom, there may be one app or so on the internet that can help make your job easier. So let's be trendy, let's be tech savvy, let's find out what apps can make our jobs easier. When it comes to writing, there's an app on the internet called Grammarly. I use it as a blogger. It helps you with your grammar as you are writing on the web. It corrects whatever mistakes that you are making. So let's be tech savvy and put in place systems that help us move, towards the vision that we have. And one of my favorite quotations on planning is that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Don't think that, as some people will say, "K Sarah, Sarah, what will be, will be." God expects us to plan, and not just to plan, but Proverbs says, "Plans fail for lack of advisors, but with much counsel they succeed." So it's not just about planning, but as we are planning, seek advice from people who can, give you a good input and help with your plans. Once again, this webinar was brought to us by the floodlightdaily.com. I know that many of us here are on our broadcast, but some of us may be hearing about it for the first time. So there is a Christian blog called floodlightdaily.com. You can check it on Google Chrome on the internet. We have articles, stories. We do personality profiles sometimes, just helping with the Christian living. We have articles that cover a wide, area, relationships, social issues, general Christian living, personal development. And in particular to this, in relation to this topic, there are 2 articles on the blog that I'd like to refer us to. If you go on the blog, you look for the article we published at the beginning of this year, 2nd January 2021. There was an article that was published, and it was as good reading for us as we decide going forward into next year. And there is another article also that's entitled "It's All in There." It's All in There Part 2. It was published June 10th June 2020, last year, 10th June 2020. And I also like to refer us all back just to refresh our minds. You find that article under the Better You segment, which is on personality or personal development. So once again, thank you so much for spending your time with us and for being here. We will share the slides, and you would get access to the YouTube recording link also. So we'd like to end with a prayer as we usually do. I see our friend and pastor here, Pastor Bryce. So Pastor Bryce, would you please do us the honors of saying a closing prayer for us, please, if you are still online?
Heavenly Father, we thank you. We ask that as your servants have shared how we plan our life, our spiritual life, our marital life, our family life, we will not just be hearers of it, but we will be doers of it. Pray that this will affect our family and change the lives of our children and everyone that comes closer to us. As we go into the coming week, we ask for open doors. We ask for direction. We ask as the year comes to an end, order our steps, guide us on the highways and the byways, preserve us and protect us. We escape every plans of the wicked and the unrighteous. Shield us and that of our family from every ensnarement. Let the snare be broken, that we will escape like birds out of the snare of the fowler. May the peace of God be with us and be with our family. In the name of Yeshua. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And once again, thank you very much to my dear husband who has done us the honors of facilitating this session.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Emmanuel Afutu, we are very grateful to you for your time, for your resources. We pray that the good Lord himself shall bless you and establish you on higher grounds. So it's a blessed week to all of you. See you, God willing, next year. Bye.
Right. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Yeah, Gifty, thank you very much. Abia, thank you. I see all of you. Thank you all.